These testimonials are representative of my or our experiences, but the exact results and experience will be unique and individual to each person. The information provided herein is not medical advice and is not intended to substitute for the advice of your personal physician or other healthcare providers. Welcome to The Beautiful Bag. This is your host, LeeAnne Hayden, cancer survivor, and more importantly, ostomy lifer. Each and every week, I'm going to be bringing a special guest or some inspiration for you and a few little stories along the way so that you can learn what life is like for us to be living in an ostomy and why we all think it's a beautiful bag. So listen in and let's get started. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's The Beautiful Bag podcast. I am your host, LeeAnne Hayden, and this week I am bringing to you something different, someone different, someone new to not really in our world, but she can help our world for sure. I've known Keri for, more than a dozen years. We used to do fitness competitions together, and Keri is my somatic coach. So we're going to talk about what in the world all that is, right? So she really works with women to help them untap their full potential, but also to realize who we already are. And she's been doing a lot of work with me. And I wanted to bring her on to help all of you, men and women alike, because I know there's both of you out there that listen to this podcast, really kind of understand what somatic work is, how we our bodies hold on to some trauma, how we can work through some things. And she is the perfect person to help us do that. Now, I'm just going to put this little thing in here. We may sound a little woo-woo-y at times, but do me a favor, keep your minds open and just go with it because you might learn something new. So, Keri, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, LeeAnne. I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, we're really, really excited to have you here. So let's start with, why don't we do a little bit of a background of you and what brought you to doing the work that you are currently doing?
I totally found somatic work by accident, which I think is really fun because most people are like, what the F is somatic work? And so how can I be looking for the thing that I don't know exists? But once I found it, I was like, oh my God, this is the thing I was looking for. And everybody needs this. This is amazing. Suddenly, I was able to access parts of myself that had been shut down, hidden away, suppressed, shamed. And now I've got the key to unlock all of these parts of me so that I can experience a sense of aliveness and authenticity and purpose at my fullest potential, which it just lights me up talking about. But somatic work is nervous system work. It's the mind-body connection. Soma meaning of the body, but really most people understand it as nervous system regulation work.
Yeah, exactly. So nervous system regulation work. Now, for somebody who has no idea what that is, what is that? Let's break it way back down.
Yeah. So there are going to be things that show up in our life, such as disease, such as physical symptoms, chronic headaches, chronic pain, disorders, disease, right? Anything that also is chronic and it feels like it's recurring. And a lot of the time we can actually go into the body, right, through some somatic modalities, and we can renegotiate traumas which have us stuck in a moment in time. And so the way that we see stress, for example, I'm going to connect all the dots here. The way that we see stress, for example, manifest in the physical body might be chronic headaches, might be chronic pain, might be chronic digestion issues, right? That gut brain connection. The way we see disease and disorders might be an emotional trauma stuck in the body where there is an experience of separation where the mind and body are not in sync. There is a separation within self. And everything is energy, right? There's studies done on water, cups of water, for example. And so when LeeAnne, you said, we might get a little woo. Now we're talking about energy and it's all happening really fast. Woo, I always say, is a window of opportunity. Keep yourself open. And to notice the inner judger that says, this is weird, but it feels like something is true here for me. So energy and water, right? Thinking about these experiments that they've done on water where they only use words as a frequency to the water, and the water responds. Nothing has changed. Literally, the environment is the same, just our words and our vibrational frequency toward the water. So like one cup of water can be spoken to with words of hate and disgust, and the other with words of love, and they both respond differently. And the reason this is important is because our body is 70% water. So our cells are listening. They're listening to that inner talk track. They're listening to our internal belief systems. They're listening to that constant psychosomatic loop, and recurring over time, over and over, chronic illness, chronic disease, chronic disorder. And so I deeply believe we actually can have the power to self-heal.
And I agree with you on that because, I mean, we've only been working with each other for a couple months now, and I've already had some moments of, wait a minute, you know, talking about like our bodies holding on to something, where there was one day we were in a session, and I don't mind sharing this, it's my session, right? So we're in a session and I felt like I just had this, I almost want to say it was like gas pain in my stomach, but it wasn't. It was just very uncomfortable feeling. And it was something that just didn't feel good. And you were like, all right, is it in a canister? Is it square? Is it rounded? Is it water? Is it sludge? Is it, what color is it? You know, and I'm going, it's brown, it's sludgy, it's gross, it's heavy, it's thick, you know, and then you had me do, you know, some work with that, and it released it and I felt like it released from where it was sitting and grounded me into the floor. And guys, when I tell you, it was like a weird experience for me, because yes, I meditate. Yes, I do some things like that, but to have something like that go through me and be like, oh, wait, now I feel grounded. Now I feel better. I don't know what it means. And a lot of us continuously, if you're like, we need to put logic to things like, why is this happening? What does this mean? What is doing? What's the answer? Because you think logically, your brain can tell you how to get to the end result, when sometimes you need to quiet it down, right? You need to quiet it down and work through that. So why don't we, you know, what are some things that, you know, someone that does have chronic disease, because a lot of people listen to this podcast have that, like, what are some things that someone could, I don't know, do that isn't too harmful, because we don't want to push it, right? Too soon, too fast. But what are some things that you would advise someone to do?
Yeah. And also, I love that you just talked about trauma, right? Trauma being defined as anything that happens too soon, too much, too fast, or too little, too slow, not enough, like childhood neglect, not enough physical touch, right? It's not what happened to us, it's how our body interpreted that experience and held on to it. So now imagine you notice this sludge and then it didn't get released, but over time, it just continued to be suppressed and pushed down, because time doesn't really heal all wounds, right? Healing and feeling does. So it's like, geez, how is that there still? It's kind of like stuck in a moment in time, stuck in a part in our body, and chronic and recurring, right? So now I'm getting ahead of myself. What was the question you asked me before this? Because I got so excited you were being a good student about trauma.
No, you keep going. But my question, my middle question was, and we can get to it, was like, you know, if people are going through some trauma, they've gone through trauma, they have had, you know, they have chronic illnesses. Like, what are some safe things? Because you do want to work with someone to work you through this, but what are some safe things someone could do to start to work through that, or even realize that they may even have it? So I actually have two questions for you. So
yeah, they're actually both the same answer, which would be, let's start with what I call, and in the somatic community, we call it a soma check-in. We're checking in with the body, soma of the body. We're just checking in with the vessel. So I would have someone sit in a chair, and I'd have them, either they can start by looking around, just look around their space. And the reason we do that often, even in an advanced practice, it's an extremely profound practice, because we are taking in the sensory experience of the here and the now. So often we are not where we physically are. We're in the to-do lists, we're in the tomorrows, we're in the what happened. We're not right now. We are not present. And so what's happening? Oh, that's nice. There's wind outside my window. I see the birds. I hear the water on, right? And suddenly we're having this whole other experience that I wasn't attuned to. So we look around. Okay, now let's close the visual cortex when we close our eyes. We're going to start the soma check-in. And all we're doing here is simply noticing. There's nothing to do with it. There's nothing to figure out. There's nothing to logic. And that's very hard for the head types and the cognitive thinkers that want all the answers right now. The somatic work is a bottom-up processing, meaning we start in the body and then we build awareness versus I'm aware of what I'm already aware of and let's work with that, right? So we start bottom up. So we close our eyes, that visual cortex, bring our feet flat to the ground, just press in gently to the floor, just feeling the pressure there, leaning against the back of the chair, just pressing against our boundaries. We're just noticing the relationship. It's our back against the chair and our chair against the back. And now melting a little bit into gravity, noticing the weight of our sit bones and what our hands might be touching. Maybe it's the texture of our pants, the coolness or the warmth of the air. Maybe there's even slight moisture of the palms, a little nervousness as we get intimate. And all we're going to do is start from the top of the head. And you're going to do a scan from head to toe. And I'll just gently guide listeners through. So if they want to pause and do this, please make sure you're not driving when you're listening to the podcast. But you're going to start at the top of your head, go behind the eyes, behind the nose and the cavity of the sinuses, in and around the ears, the mouth and the tongue, letting the tongue drop to the floor of the mouth, behind the throat and behind the tongue, all the way down the esophagus into the front and the back of the neck, into the collarbones extending all the way out to the shoulder blades and the shoulders, your arms, into the cavity of the chest, in and around the lungs and the heart. We're just noticing what we notice as we do this scan. What are we scanning? Anything that might feel blocked, uncomfortable, tense, painful, joyful, peaceful, pleasant, all of the things. Continuing to go down, down behind the belly, in and around the organs, through the webbing that holds the organs, into the hips, the lower back, all the way down, glutes, and the pubic bone, the tops of the legs, the quads, and the back of the legs, through to the hamstrings, down to the knees, all the way down to the calves and the shins, and the ankle and the toes, tippy of the toes, and then bringing it back up again, noticing where your energy focuses. What are you aware of in this moment? What feels alive for you, I might ask, if we were in session? Alive can feel unpleasant or pleasant. It can have a sense of stuckness. Again, pain. Any of those things are indicators the body is trying to speak and tell us something. And that's it. We simply start with a soma check-in. We are just sitting with, learning to listen, learning to attune, and learning to notice what we notice without making it mean anything at all.
I love that. And I just did it.
Yeah.
And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, I've got some tightness in my hips now. Could be the work that I did this morning, but yeah. So now when someone goes through that and they're like, okay, I have some tightness in my hips, or I'm feeling, everything feels good, but there may be something in my lower back, or maybe it's something in my pelvis floor. Is there things, especially, and I'm only saying this because a lot of it's ostomies, ostomates that are listening, it's a lot of stuff where, part of the colon is missing or all of the colon is missing. Are there some special things that can be done just in that area that you could actually tap into?
Yeah, there's a few things. And because I'm guiding kind of through podcast and self-coaching, what I might invite is to ask your body, is there something that it needs in this moment? And what is that? Maybe it's to stand up and stretch. Maybe it's we had someone just on a session just want to lay down. What is it if I were really listening to my body, and this may not make any logical sense? It often doesn't. What does it really want to do if I were being honest with myself? Maybe it's like, oh, I want to just put my hands there. Okay, put your hands there. How does it feel to offer support to yourself? Feel that. And we just really slow things down a lot. We miss the mark on a lot of things because we're going so fast. So healing begins with time and space. That's where healing begins. So we're learning to slow it down and to give it space. And there's so much richness that can come up in that because, like, oh, I didn't think to stretch like this. And gosh, that feels good to offer my self support. That feels very loving to put my hands on my back there. Right. So we do that and we realize that there is so much healing available, even through the self coaching. So that's where I would start. And again, it's interesting because you know what it's like to be guided. We kind of end up nowhere where you thought we would go. And then you kind of forget, like, how did we arrive here? But there is also so much available in just some of that self-coaching. Mm-hmm. How often, too, thinking about it from a wellness perspective, how often is it that we're sitting there and we're like, I had to go to the bathroom an hour ago and I didn't go. Or like, I really need some water right now. Or whatever those things are on a basic physiological need. I'm really tired right now. And yet here I am on my phone scrolling until 12 o'clock at night. Why am I not listening to my body? But through more time and space, we offer an invitation for another kind of conversation, which is listening.
And nobody ever listens to their body, like you said. I mean, we're running so fast all the time. And the only time we do maybe stop to listen is when there's something seriously wrong, or there's some illness, or we're in the hospital and we're like, okay, what is this? Now what? And that's the only time we slow down. But if we can learn these processes, learn to slow down, learn to listen to our bodies more, maybe we won't be in the hospital, or maybe we can work on some things way ahead of time, right? I mean, I remember that when I found out I had cancer 7+ years ago, I was talking to one of my girlfriends and she said to me, because I meditate all the time, and she just said to me, during one of your meditations, what she did when she was going through cancer, and she survived it, and she's like, picture the smiley emoji, happy emoji face, millions of them running through your veins, millions of them just running through the blood in your veins as you're meditating. Put that smiley emoji everywhere, because that's what you're going to focus on, and that's going to make you feel better and feel good. And like you said, your body listens. Your body listens, right? And we're all energy. Our cells are listening. So putting some good things into our body, and it's more than just, oh, you're so positive all the time. Not really.
Yeah, also it's about getting curious around, can we speak an affirmation, but why does it feel untrue? And actually feeling that it's a possibility to feel good or feeling good, right? It's not about acting happy. It's about actually being happy and feeling it's true.
Exactly. That's not easy. And that's not an easy.
It's not easy. Right. Yeah. Sometimes our trauma will provide a veil that kind of shifts and skews our perspective because we're looking at the world through a specific lens, right? Our lived experience. And so trauma can blur the lines of truth. And it can also do the picking for us, even when we don't think it is.
Right. And there's all kinds of trauma, right? It's not just like, oh, my body went through surgery. That's trauma.
Correct.
Yes, that's trauma. Right. But what other kinds of trauma have you seen people, have you seen or can people experience?
Yeah. There's like acute trauma, like a car accident that happens out of nowhere, blindsiding, really traumatic, and obviously there might even be like moments in time where we kind of come offline and we can't remember, like gaps in memory. Childhood, maybe there's gaps in memory there. Trauma can also be where you were needing a hug as a child and didn't get it. Maybe chronically over time, it's a collection of experiences where you never got that hug. Childhood neglect, for example, right? Or it could be that one time that a kid said something to you and you just heard it a different way than what it was meant for. And you experienced it as rejection. And now, you know what? I just learned I'm never going to speak up again, or whatever our body interpreted that experience as, which is probably a lack of safety or a violation and a breach of boundaries, right? That's usually where trauma occurs, is where there's a breach of boundaries even. I couldn't say no, but that was a violation of my body. or someone said something and I heard it a different way than how it was meant, but I made it mean something. And now my behavior thereafter is continually dictated by this moment in history, this moment in the past, showing up not only, in this present moment, but in the future moments to come. And that's how we know trauma is doing the picking for us, through our actions and behaviors in that way.
And the only way for us to really realize that that's happening to us is that for us to slow it down and to do the body scan, like you said, and see where we're feeling things.
Yeah, to renegotiate that trauma in the body, which is something I would recommend doing with a somatic practitioner, through someone that knows what they're doing, right? Because we don't want to just like pour salt in the wound. And it's way less in somatic work about what happened to you and way more about how it feels in your body as you speak about it, what you notice, where you feel it. And the reason is because it's that bottom up processing, not cognitive top down. Cognitive top down would be like CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, which can get you to a certain point of healing and does have its place for people that are leaning into their healing journey. However, what I have found personally is it only got me so far in my journey because I'm talking about what I'm already aware of. I'm not learning new information or feeling anything new or shifting anything. Like, I'm talking about these things. I'm aware of what's holding me back or causing certain things in my life to continually show up, but nothing's actually changing because in a way, it's sort of like mental masturbation. We're aware of what we're already aware of, but change requires two things. It requires awareness and choice, new choices, new ways, new patterns, new behaviors. Otherwise, we get the same result.
Right. Right. And working with a coach, is ideal to do that. It really is, guys. I mean, we, I've spent years doing therapy and, talking things out, talking things out. And I've even had therapists say, well, if you're not going to talk about you and you're just going to talk about work, right. We're not going to get to the root of it all. But in my mind, I couldn't see what I couldn't see, right? We don't see what we don't see. We don't know what we don't know. So literally spending the time finding a great somatic coach to help work you through that. Now, when in the beginning, I said you love to help women untap their full potential, but also realize who they really are. What did all that mean? What does that mean for someone?
Yeah. So I was watching the Taylor Swift documentary this weekend and I was fascinated by her. Now, she said something that really struck me. And she said, I wish I didn't think that there was a better version of me that existed somewhere else. Like, whoa. And so it had me sit for a moment because so often I love helping women unlock their next level. And I'm definitely the first to say, like, next level doesn't always mean next income bracket or next title shift on your resume. And it can mean more peace. Maybe more peace is the season you're in, and that's your next level, or learning to slow the fuck down. And it actually feels good where you're not getting more anxiety as a result of taking Fridays off. And so, but this other conversation sort of, entered the arena when she said that, because I'm like, yeah, that is so much about the healing work that we get to do, because true healing is equally about being able to unlock the aliveness of you, but it's recognizing that that was fucking there the whole time and remembering that. So it's equally about acceptance and expansion. It's not just about pursuing the next goal. It's about loving who you are and remembering who that person is.
And that is so important. It's so, because when you do look at things, it's like, I'm so goal oriented. Like my whole life, we worked on that. One of my sessions, she actually had me growling. I gotta get it done. I gotta get to the next thing, or I need this, or whatever the next goal is. And it's that constant. And I think I've spent, I'm 52 years old. I've spent the majority of my adult life, chasing goals, chasing quotas, chasing something, being better, being bigger, all that stuff. And it's just, when is it okay LeeAnne to be okay? Like, when is it okay for me just to be me and be okay with sitting right here doing what I'm doing now, right? And it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work to even realize you're doing it.
Yeah, because the question there is, how can I be content without feeling complacent? And can that even exist? as someone who is a doer.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and you're saying that, and I'm looking at, a goal that I hit, years ago, way back, in my network marketing business at the time. And I hit this goal and I hit this income level, and I never thought I would do it. And I got there and I was so happy I was there. And then I sat there and I couldn't get through that level. And then I sat there and I was like, and then I went and chased something else that I could make fresh and new and a whole new level. So one started slowing down, one started going up. So it was like, I maintained that same income level without, I guess, staying complacent, staying stuck. I hate using that word, but just staying there without realizing, like, why am I here? Why did I do that? Like,
Yeah.
I had to go reset and make it a goal.
Learning the language of the body and the edges of your nervous system starts to apply a different filter to your life, which helps you discern between, am I chasing this because I can't seem to sit still with where I am and be content and happy and peaceful enough? Or is it part of my soul's expression and zone of genius to be on to the next thing? Or is it both, right? And just really understanding, well, what's happening in the body when I'm doing these things? Am I feeling anxious as hell right now as I pursue this thing and I'm doing it out of fear? What is driving? And so that's why understanding the language of the body and what's happening on a somatic level, where we can feel the difference in our body when we feel anxiety driving, we feel fear, when we feel love, when we feel joy, and knowing the difference is so important.
Right. So again, it's slowing down to feel it. It's slowing down to understand it, to feel it, to be able to move forward in it.
Exactly.
Again, to know where you're coming from, right? And what your body's been through. This has been fantastic. Now, if you were to, I want to make sure that we touch on everything. Is there anything else? If there was one more thing that you would want to leave the listeners with, what would that one thing be?
Your body is so resilient, and it knows what to do if we listen. Tune in and let it guide you. I would also look into Dr. Joe Dispenza's work. He was in a major car accident, and he was told he was going to be unable to walk and all of these things. And he sat in a meditation for 3+ hours a day. And if he veered off the vision, he would start it over again until he was able to complete the through thread of the healing vision he had. And the vision was this. It was in the meditation, he envisioned his body healing itself, cell by cell, up through his back and his neck and all the parts of him that had been completely wrecked in this accident. And he made a commitment to himself and said, if this works, I'm going to commit the rest of my life to teaching this work. And that's what he does now. Teaches people manifestation and being a self-healer and all the laws of the universe and these ways that you can self-heal truly through the power of the mind. But we got to get the mind and the body aligned, not just think happy thoughts, but feel them too.
I love that. And I love that
you believed in it.
Yeah, he really did. You have to do that, right? Yeah, it's that giving yourself a moment of that peace. And like you said, he would spend 3+ hours a day going through that process, going through that practice.
Yeah. And it got easier, but he was working actively through his own resistance to the not believing. This is all bullshit. Is this real? And noticing his mind wanting to come out or pop out of his body and, just disconnect. Mm-hmm. Or noticing that thoughts just boop, taking him off course. And so he would start again and he would master his mind. And a master of your mind is a master of your reality in all the ways.
I love that. Now, if the listeners wanted to find you or, work with you, or how would they get in touch with you? Where would be the best place to go?
The best place to reach out and just see what programs we have available is on elevatewithkeri, KERI.com. Instagram or Facebook are great ways. Myself or my team are in the DMs actively managing that. And the program that you're in, LeeAnne, is probably a really good starting place for any female that is trying to unlock whatever that looks like for her in terms of her fullest expansion and expression, in terms of leadership, whether she's an entrepreneur or an executive. And that is the Somatic Success Academy, where we really bring together the experience of external success and internal fulfillment through having more peace, profit, and productivity.
I love it. And I will make sure to have all of this in the show notes as well. Well, Keri, I need to thank you. Thank you for taking us on that little journey earlier of how to listen to our body. Thank you for sharing what somatic practices are, and that whole mind-body connection. And guys, I hope you reach out to Keri. I hope you go take a look and do some of the work for ourselves to heal your bodies, to heal your minds, and to move forward in life. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. Love you.
Thank you so much for joining us this week. If you enjoyed this podcast, get the behind the scenes at leeannehayden.com/ostomy updates. And also, if you found this episode encouraging, please screenshot it and share it on Instagram. And don't forget to tag me and also the person who was on the episode with me. I occasionally will do special gifts for anyone who does do a screenshot and share it on Instagram or in your stories. Also, lastly, please go to Apple or Google, rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast to keep up with them every single week. I enjoy you guys. Thank you so much for being here.